Hello everyone, it's I, Dr. Packard, and today we're going to be doing something a little bit different. Today we are reading a canon. A canon is a series of tales and SCPs which all come together as its own independent universe. The SCP Foundation has no one official canon, and they all can vary greatly. The one we are covering today is the End of Death scenario. Now, not to spoil anything, but the end of death is not the start of immortality. The following is an excerpt from the Foundation database of K-class contingencies. Scenario designation: Omega K-class. Likelihood: near impossible. Severity: survivable requires moderate restructuring of human civilization. Description: An Omega K class, quote, end of death scenario refers to a situation wherein immortality is forced upon all life without any other biological change. For example, the halting of aging or forced sterilization. All protocols regarding this scenario assume steps are taken to avoid any broken masquerade situation. This step also assumes that the Foundation has maintained its current structure and subdivisions. Priorities: 1. Population control. Due to insects' population, birth, and death rate, this must be addressed within 24 hours of this scenario onset before the insect population overtakes WK class scenario thresholds. After this juncture, it will be imperative that a long term solution is devised for other organisms. Number 2. Veil control. While the entire human population will become exposed to anomalies at this time, it is important that no other anomalies come to their attention. Normalcy will be redefined to account for the effects of the Omega K class scenario, and containment must be continued. A misinformation campaign is to be disseminated, a cover story that explains the newfound immortality in terms of fabricated research. 3. Research terminal state replacements. If true death is not achievable, an alternate must be engineered for ethical reasons. It has been deemed unacceptable to let mankind suffer indefinitely due to decaying biological components. Now, you may have noticed I said immortality several times throughout that reading. However, I say the end of death immortality is very different from the normal immortality throughout other pieces of media. As the end of death immortality does not end aging. This is not an end of aging. It is only an end to being unable to have brain function. Your brain will continue to exist while your body rots. This, in my opinion, is one of many horrifying fates that you can have throughout the SCP expanded universe. Now, today we will be reading the SCPs associated with this canon. In the next video, we will be reading some of the tales associated with this canon. In the third part, I will summarize all of this so you all can understand easier. I hope you enjoy, and here we go. This is SCP 3984. It is partially a tale, but as its main purpose is an SCP, I will be reading all of it. The library is warm and dark outside. It's a summer night. Warmth and humidity linger in the air from earlier in the day. A storm is predicted for the week ahead, but the sky is clear for now. The library has been closed for several hours. You shut the front door quietly behind you and make your way out of the foyer. The floor is a carpet, soft and thick, muffling each of your footsteps for you. The collective gaze of several security cameras is trained upon the door, but for tonight they are blind. A wooden door leads from the foyer into the library proper. It swings openly smoothly, without so much as a groan. On any other night, it would creak loudly. You move deeper into the library. A stray book lies on the floor, shrouded in the darkness. Your foot hits it. You trip. Not enough to fall, but enough to throw you off your balance. You reach out and grab a bookshelf. Your hand, searching for a place to grasp, hits another book and sends it falling to the floor, where it hits the carpet with a thud that echoes all around the room. You freeze. The echo fades. The library returns to silence. If someone was here, they would have noticed that. You decide that you are alone and continue walking normally. You have arrived at the librarian's desk, climb over it, and take a seat in one of the two computers, and boot it up. A login prompt appears. You withdraw a notebook from your pockets and enter the details on the first page. The login is successful. The rest of the notebook is filled with instructions, combinations of buttons to press, commands to enter. You open two different terminals, enter a series of commands, watch lines of text you don't understand flicker past your eyes. Eventually, as the notebook demands, you take an SCP drive from your pockets and gently push it into the computer. The screen goes black as it thinks about what it needs to do. A long, tense moment passes. The file for SCP-3984 lights up the room. As the page loads, burning your eyes that have grown used to the darkness, you wince and blink and wait for your eyes to adjust. You exhale relief. The instructions that were given to you worked, but it's a feeling that you cut short. You're here to solve a mystery that you've lived with your entire life. A mystery that no one else seems to want to solve or even acknowledge. A mystery that's been around for 24 years, and you have to hope, that this file will hold at least some answers. It's the only place left to look. The file begins with a note from one of the researchers. Reading from the top seems like a good way to start. Notice to all personnel. Omega K is a thing. It's happened. We all have to live with it now. Despite speculation, no matter how prevalent said speculation is, we do not know for sure whether or not we caused Omega K, whether any of our SCPs caused it, or whether any of them can fix it. We do not know whether it is related to the Foundation at all. What we do know is now it defines our lives. The SCP Foundation does not destroy anomalies. It contains them. That is our purpose. Omega K is an anomaly, and we will contain it. We will not end it. We will not, quote, put things back, as certain individuals are asking. That is not our purpose. This is not our battle. However, we will contain it, or at least try to. So if any of you are expecting my research team to come up with some magical solution to end Omega K, stop expecting that. We will treat the symptoms, but not cure the disease. Omega K is here, and it's not going away. So grow up and move on. You are professionals. Act like it. It's not like this is going to kill you. Dr. Emily Young. Dr. Emily Young, a name you've been trying to avoid for the past 20 years. You met Young last year, and suffice it to say that she is of very little use for research purposes. You'll get no benefit from talking to her. This document really is the last place you can look. SCP-3984 End of Death Hub. SCP-3984 Item SCP-3984 Object Class Keter or Keter. Special Containment Procedures. Containment of SCP-3984 revolves around inducing death in affected animals. As this is not currently possible, SCP-3984 can be considered uncontained. Research efforts must be directed into the development of alternate methods of inducing death. Research into reversing the effects of Omega K or its origin is prohibited. Prohibited. Unusual. What was Young up to? Description: SCP-3984 refers to a phenomenon in which any living organisms in the kingdom Amelia under Cadaver Smith taxonomy. Footnote 1. The kingdom Amelia under the Cavalier Smith taxonomy includes all animals but not bacteria, fungi, algae, or plants, including humans, are unable to die. The source or origin of the prevalence of SCP-3984 as such is only referred to as Omega K. The exact nature of Omega K is currently under debate. This document pertains only to SCP-3984 and its effects, not its origin. Omega K occurred on 2020-9/12 at approximately 14:02 GMT. a time which has been derived from the last globally recorded human death. Since that time, SCP-3984 has been present in every living creature thus tested. As a result, mortality rates have dropped to zero. SCP-3984 appears to only extend the ability to die. SCP-3984 does not grant a healing effect, does not prevent aging, and does not prevent contraception or pregnancy. It also does not prevent subjects from self-sustaining injury or injury whatsoever. In the long term, SCP-3984 presents a major threat to societal structure as the population is expected to expand exponentially. Current models estimate that the overpopulation would begin to lead to excessive scarcity to the point of widespread starvation in the early 2040s. Additionally, while population growth is a considerable concern for humans in the long term, a much larger short term concern is presented by animals with R selected evolutionary strategies. Footnote 2. Animals living in unstable environments are generally characterized by R selected evolutionary strategies, which consist of producing many cheap offspring, of which few are expected to survive, compared to K selected evolutionary scenarios, which consist of producing a single more expensive offspring, which is expected to survive for the maximum lifespan of the species. Worldwide efforts should be focused on generating I'm sorry, folks, sufficient, sufficient resources for the planet to be able to cope with the increased population. Talks with governments around the world to determine strategies for managing population growth for both humans and animals is underway. Foundation efforts should be focused on the development of an alternative and/or artificial solutions to replace death. The extent to which SCP-3984 constitutes, quote, conventional immortality, footnote 3. For example, does it prevent aging and injuring? Is there a healing factor? Does it simply remove an assailant's ability to kill? Is the subject of ongoing research, which is led by Dr. Young as per request. Experimental logs and a theory on the mechanism of SCP-3984 is presented below. Experiment log 01. Date 2020-09-14. Experimenter Dr. Emily Young. Subject D1190. Procedure D1190 was asphyxiated by manual strangulation from D9981. Results D119 struggled initially but stopped resisting after several minutes of strangulation. D9981 was told to maintain grip for at least a further 10 minutes. D1190 recovered shortly afterwards with no lasting damage. Experiment log 2. Date 2020-09-14. Experimenter Dr. Emily Young. Subject D6812. Procedure D6812 was asphyxiated by D9981, tying a belt around his neck. Results D6812 initially resisted asphyxiation, despite instructions otherwise, but stopped after several minutes of strangulation. D9981 was told to keep the belt in position for a further 10 minutes. D6812 recovered with mild but permanent damage to several muscular ligaments in his neck. D6812 was admitted to the Site 06 medical ward but did not make any further recovery. Experiment log 03. Date 2020 9/15. Experimenter Dr. Emily Young. Subject D1190. Procedure D1190 was placed in a vacuum sealed chamber from which air was ventilated. Results D119 began to asphyxiate after several minutes into the test, visibly struggling for air and collapsed against the wall of the chamber after less than a minute, remaining conscious. Subject was left overnight, after which air was released back into the chamber. D1190 was admitted to the site medical ward with acute cerebral hypoxia and burst blood vessels in the eyes. Subject physically recovered within 3 days, but remained in a vegetated state for several weeks. Upon awakening, D1190 displayed symptoms of permanently impaired motor and speech skills, as well as widespread paralysis. 2020 1102. 1 month after waking up, D1190 has not shown any signs of further recovery. It appears that the anomalous nature of the healing effects extends only to fatal injuries or ailments. D1190 remains effectively useless as a D class under usual circumstances. I'd recommend termination. Dr. Emily Young. Well, Miss Emily Young, there is no more termination. Experiment log 04. Date 2020-09-17. Experimenter Dr. Emily Young. Subject D88 Greek. Subject procedure D88 Greek had cuts made on her wrist and ankles over the course of 6 hours and was drained of an estimated 80% of her blood. Removed blood was retained and reintroduced to the body the following day via IV drip. Results. In much the same manner as the previous experiment, D88 Gregory was successfully, quote, resurrected, but has suffered injuries consistent with prolonged loss of oxygen to the brain. In this instance, subjects' symptoms include loss of sensation in the left half of the body and loss of understanding of any subject more complex than naming animals. Note that D88 Gregory remained conscious despite not having a significant volume of blood. The logs continue in much the same fashion, with some unfortunate D-class being exposed to something that would normally kill them. Poison, starvation, explosion, whatever. You scroll down looking for one in particular. The old scroll wheel clicks loudly, 20 times with each movement of your finger. A series of loud clicks that echo with the silence of the library. You stop at experiment 10. Experiment log 10. Date 2020-10-11. Experimenter Dr. Emily Young. Subject D11424. Procedure D11424 was decapitated with a steel bladed guillotine. Results. Head was cleanly removed. D11424 remained conscious during and after the operation. Efforts were made to breathe, which failed, and D11424 began to show signs of suffocation and significant blood loss. Although D11424 was admitted to the Site 06 medical ward, the injury was deemed, quote, irreparable. Both head and body were placed into cold storage. You smile, lifting your hand to touch the raised scar that forms a ring around your neck and tiny bumps from age-old stitches. Irreparable. You keep scrolling. So for anybody that does not understand, you the reader in this tale are this D-class, who has had your head cut off and sewn back on. Experiment log 20. Date 2025-11-05. Experimenter Dr. Emily Young. Subject D10-2-7-3. Procedure. One round from a standard issue security handgun was fired into the forehead of D1027 by Dr. Young. Results. Subject sustained a major head injury and was admitted to Site 06 medical ward with severe brain damage and blood loss. 25-12-28. After almost 2 months under medical care, D10-273 has made a full recovery, albeit with major memory loss of both recent and earlier history. Subject remembers basic skills, such as how to eat and speak, but does not recall any personal details. Experiment log 21. Date 25-12-31. Experimenter Dr. Emily Young. Stand in Dr. Joyce Michaels. Subject: Dr. Emily Young. Procedure: Dr. Emily Young self administered a single bullet to the head from a security handgun in much the same manner, manner as the previous test. Results: Subject sustained major head injury and was admitted to Site 06 Medical Ward. Bullet had pierced the temporal lobe, frontal lobe, and brainstem, the latter of which appears to have disconnected from Dr. Young's brain from her body. She is unable to communicate or perform any motor functions. Note: as Dr. Young is incapable of performing further research, she has been removed from the SCP-3984 research team. She will undergo a psychological review pending on her recovery. In the meantime, I will be assuming control of research. Dr. Joyce Michaels. Note: Dr. Young has neglected to maintain a log of specific research intentions for each experiment. Despite this, we have been able to narrow down the source of immortality to the brain. Further experiments should focus on this. We can consider the rest of the body to be mortal. Dr. Michaels. Michaels isn't wrong. You've seen someone in a car crash, their body mangled beyond recognition, limbs in places they shouldn't be, and blood everywhere. That they should be a corpse. Still found the energy to call for help, to scream in pain. You don't imagine they were stopped. Young hasn't changed much since the experiment. You couldn't tell whether or not she recognized you. Experiment log 22. Date 26/02/02. Experimenter Dr. Joyce Michaels. Subject D. Gree 7 Gree A male macaque mutilata or ricus macaque. Purpose: to confirm or deny the above assumption. Procedure: D. Gree 7 Gree A was given a standard lethal dose injection. Footnote 4. A standard lethal dose injection consists of the following substances with 3-minute gaps between injections: 5 grams of sodium. I'm sorry, folks, if I mispronounce these. Thiopenal, 100 milligrams of panerconium bromine, 3.9 grams of potassium chloride to stop the heart. Results: primary injection was unable to cause D. Gree 7 Gree A to become unconscious. However, its vocalizations became slower and panic-like symptoms were noted. Secondary injection saw widespread muscular relaxation and induced breathing difficulty. Third injection quickly induced cardiac arrest throughout, which D. Gree 7 Gree A remained conscious and visibly panicked despite severe muscular relaxation. After 12 hours, when the administered drugs were declared to be no longer actively causing symptoms in the subject, D. Gree 7 Gree A was admitted to the Site 06 Medical Ward with acute cerebral hypoxia from the lack of blood flow. Note that D. Gree 7 Gree A remained conscious throughout the experiment. 26/02/25. With medical attention from Site 06, D. Gree 7 Gree A has made a full recovery with no permanent side effects. Note: it is interesting to observe that sedation was unable to induce unconsciousness in the subject. It might not be that the brain is immortal, but it is impossible to cause one to be unconscious. Dr. Joyce Michaels. Experiment log 23, 2026/02/07. Experimenter Dr. Joyce Michaels. Subject Gree 7 4A, a female ricus macaque. Purpose: to confirm or deny the above assumption that it is not possible to cause the brain to become unconscious. Procedure: over the course of 5 days, D. Gree 7A4A was injected with a mild sedative, a strong sedative, a mild local anesthetic, a mild general anesthetic, class C amnestics. Results: D. Gree 7-4A responded positively to the mild sedative. Dose was insignificant enough to cause sleep. Local and general anesthetic anesthetic, however you say that, and amnestics. D374A had no response to the strong sedative. In fact, no effect of the sedative was observed, despite the weak sedative showing a positive drowsiness response. Note: sedation, at least to the point of unconsciousness, is not an option for future experiments. This supports the above assumption. Dr. Joyce Michaels. Experiment log 24, 2026, 02, 19. Experimenter, Dr. Joyce Michaels. Subject, D39OA, a female rhesus macaque. Purpose, to establish that the effects of SCP-3984 hold even when the brain no longer conventionally exists. I will warn you all, this one is a bit brutal even for the SCP standards. So you have been warned. You may skip forward at least 1 minute if you would like to skip this part. I'll put a timestamp up on screen right now to show exactly when I'm done reading this section. Procedure. After being restrained, the skull of SCP-390A was surgically opened from the top down to the neck. Connection to the spinal column was severed and the brain was removed. As damage to the neurons and other brain cells are not at risk, the brain was separated into individual cells through a combination of chemical desegregation and mechanical trituration with a blender. Yeah, I'm sorry I can't read that part without laughing a little bit. A organization as great as the SCP Foundation used a blender to blend this monkey's brain into a smoothie. See why I said this part's a bit brutal. Individual brain cells were then suspended in a saline solution. The resulting mixture, referred to as solution 398424, was placed through a series of tests to determine its electrical activity. Results: electrical signals persisted throughout the brain cells suspended in the solution, as would be expected for a healthy human brain, leading to the conclusion that SCP-3984 affects the individual cells of the brain itself. Despite this, it was not possible to determine whether or not D390O remained conscious, as an MRI scan was inconclusive on account of the not brain-shaped nature of the solution and the randomization of cell locations. Samples of a solution 398424 are available upon request. You've seen enough test logs. None of them contain the information you're looking for. At some point, there'll be one test where they reconnect D11424's severed head, but beyond that, none of them interest you. You scroll right down to the bottom of the page. Summary of research. Though characteristics research by Dr. Emily Young and Dr. Joyce Michaels, overall SCP-3984 can be characterized by an inability for the brain to become unconscious. The current theory proposes that SCP-3984 does not represent immortality as such, but rather an inability for the brain to lose function. The amount of function is not retained, so long as the brain itself remains operable. See Experiment 03. Access denied. Foundation personnel are already at your location. Redacted. You knew that. You'd never be able to get as deep as you needed to. Level 5 access? That's 05. Impersonable. Impossible. What were you thinking? The computer screen illuminates your face. You're suddenly very keenly, acutely aware that you are the most visible object in the room. The silence feels so loud. There's something stirring in the darkness. There are shapes all around you. People, barely visible, clad in black, guns raised, pointed at you. 2 of them. 4. No. 6. More than you can count. Slowly advancing. You drop down and crouch behind the librarian's desk, under the computer monitor, with your back pressed against the front wooden panel. A single shot rings out, tearing through the silence. You're aware of the splinters of wood flying as the bullet tears through the desk. Something shoots out of your chest, right in the middle. Your breathing stops. The black figure comes around the back of the librarian's desk from both sides. They converge closer and closer. It's now that you wish you could die.